As insane as 2020 was, Apple had their strongest hardware showing in years. Here's a look at my favorite 5 Apple products for 2020. It seems like forever ago, but back in the spring of 2020, Apple released the highly anticipated Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro. Of course, it wasn't just a keyboard, but a full input utility that also incorporated a trackpad. The Magic Keyboard was a remarkable product because it transformed the iPad into a much more capable productivity device. Coupled with the new pointer input capability that launched with iPadOS 13.4, the iPad Pro could now more or less function as a laptop. Yes, it finally allowed users to point and click to interface with apps without needing to lift a finger towards the touchscreen. Having real cursor input is something that many, including myself, have been clamoring for years, so it was a bit surreal when the Magic Keyboard alongside iPadOS's new touch input functionality actually landed in the hands of users. And I have to say, after several months of using the iPad Magic Keyboard, it's hard to imagine going back to how things used to be. The 4th generation iPad Air saw Apple's mid-range tablet, a long-running middle child of the lineup, updated with a brand new design. Doubtlessly inspired by the iPad Pro, the iPad Air 4 now features flat edges that surround a new edge-to-edge 10.9-inch liquid retina display, and it looks stunning. Now, because there's no Face ID sensor, Apple incorporates for the very first time Touch ID into the side button, or in this case, the top button. So that's pretty cool. And the 4th generation iPad Air is currently the only iPad that Apple sells featuring Apple's A14 system on a chip, making it, at least until the next generation iPad Pro launches in 2021, the fastest tablet from a CPU perspective in Apple's lineup. Perhaps most importantly, the new design finally allows an iPad without the Pro designation to use the 2nd generation Apple Pencil, and it features compatibility with the aforementioned Magic Keyboard. When you couple all these features with the $599 cost of admission, it's clear that the iPad Air is pound for pound the best iPad in the lineup. As a huge fan of the iPhone 4 era design, I've been waiting for a true successor to the original iPhone SE, and we finally got it with the iPhone 12 mini. Now, the real 2nd generation iPhone SE, which also launched earlier this year in 2020, feels less like the original iPhone SE and more like the iPhone 8 or, iPhones of that era. The iPhone 12 mini feels much more like the true follow-up to the original iPhone SE that we've been waiting so long for. And it features all the processing power of its larger siblings in a pint-sized 5.4-inch edge-to-edge design. The iPhone 12 mini is my favorite iPhone in years in terms of form factor. But it's not just the size that makes the iPhone 12 mini so appealing, it's the design. The design of the iPhone 12 mini, with its flat edges sandwiched between those two pieces of glass, has all the makings of an outright classic. Now, compared to supersized smartphones like the iPhone 12, the iPhone 12 Pro, or the ridiculously large iPhone 12 Pro Max, the iPhone 12 mini is miles more comfortable in the hand. Meanwhile, you still get all that amazing processing power, screen technology, and many of the same camera features as the rest of the lineup. Now, let's make no mistake, the larger iPhones will no doubt outsell the iPhone 12 mini, probably multiple times over, but that's because people are just so used to having these huge screens, they're addicted to having these large smartphones, and I have to say I'm guilty of it as well. Even someone like me who acknowledges the beauty and the practical design of the iPhone 12 mini still opts to carry around an iPhone 12 Pro Max as his daily driver. I know it's shameful, but regardless, I still have to acknowledge that the iPhone 12 mini is one of the best products that Apple has released in 2020. It's still hard to believe that Apple made the transition from Intel to Apple Silicon with almost zero issues whatsoever. I mean, this transition probably even surpassed Cupertino's lofty expectations. The M1 Macs are one of the biggest advancements in computing in the last few decades, and what's crazy to me is that this is just the beginning. What makes this thing so impressive is that someone who knew nothing about Apple's recent architecture transition would probably be none the wiser when just picking picking up one of these machines. In classic Steve Jobs terms, the M1 Macs just work. For doing regular computer work, browsing the web, word processing, spreadsheets, etc., users are going to basically see no difference when compared to an Intel-based Mac. Granted, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, there are differences, but Apple's introduction of Rosetta 2 translation has been nothing short of impressive. It means that most of the apps designed for Intel CPUs work more or less like they always have. Now, of course, there's always a few apps here or there that don't work, but the vast majority do. And apps that are designed specifically as universal apps to take advantage of the M1 system on a chip perform even better. It really is a win-win scenario without too many downsides. What's so remarkable about these Macs, especially the two laptops in the lineup, is just how power efficient they are. The fanless MacBook Air is dead silent, but all the machines are quiet. Even the MacBook Pro and Mac Mini are inaudible in most cases, even when pushed. But like I was saying, it's the efficiency that really stands out, yielding incredible battery life on the M1 MacBooks. In the case of both the MacBook Air and to a larger extent the MacBook Pro, you get true all-day usage as a result. Now, as impressive as all that is, I've been blown away by the performance of these Macs, which are the fastest Macs to date in single-core performance and by no means slow in multi-core operations. But what's really been impressive is just how fast these machines are for specialized tasks, like working with HEVC encoded H.265 video. While Intel Macs retain some advantages like the ability to install Windows on a separate boot camp partition, M1 Macs have shown their versatility, such as the ability to load Windows 10 for ARM on a Parallels virtual machine instance. And you're probably not shocked to learn that performance when running Windows for ARM on the M1 MacBook is actually better than Windows for ARM running natively on Microsoft Surface hardware. But like I was saying, this is just the beginning. If these Macs are already this good in the first generation, how much better will these machines be 2 or 3 generations down the line? How crazy fast will an Apple Silicon powered Mac Pro be? Mind is blown just thinking about that. No doubt, it's exciting to think about the future prospects. The HomePod Mini is not a remarkable product, but it is a very important product to Apple and its users. The HomePod Mini is basically a shrunken HomePod without all the fancy computational audio features and less impressive sound. Yet, it more than makes up for the deficiencies in these areas with a cheaper price, more flexible placement, and in some ways, more advanced technology. As someone who truly values the sound of the original HomePod, especially when two work together as a stereo pair, the HomePod Mini will not be replaced the originals that sit on my office desk. Instead, the HomePod Mini will occupy rooms that either didn't already have one, or areas like the kitchen where I wouldn't dare place a $300 fabric covered speaker to get splattered by food. And although $99 for the HomePod Mini is still quite a bit more expensive than competing miniature smart speakers from companies like Google or Amazon, the HomePod Mini sounds a lot better, and more importantly, it gives you access to Siri in more places around your home. It means that you can now interact with all of your HomeKit devices, play Apple Music, query Siri about the latest news, play your favorite podcasts, make phone calls, and check text messages in more places. For the cost of a single regular HomePod, you can now deploy 3 HomePod Minis, completely blanketing your house with Siri access. Now, whether or not that's the wise thing to do is for a whole nother conversation. 2020 would have been an incredible year for Apple, even if it were just a normal year. But the fact that Apple pulled all these hardware releases off and we're barely just really scratching the surface here speaks to their management and supply chain prowess, not to mention all the designers and engineers behind these products. However you feel about Apple, you have to be impressed by how well they kept all this together amidst very challenging circumstances. Products like the M1 Max aren't just your annual spec bumps. These are line-defining releases, and Apple pulled it off like it was just another year. So tell me, what products make it in your best Apple hardware releases of 2020? Sound off down below with your thoughts. This is Jeff with 9 to 5 Mac.